you were a gift. You were a gift to anyone who was going to be your parent. Anyone would have been so lucky to have this daughter come into their arms. You were a gift. And whatever your parent felt at that moment and directed toward you had nothing to do with who you actually were. Nothing. It was about their woundedness. And if you ask them today, I don't know if they're even still alive, but if your mother, if you asked her today, or the people who were shaming when you were in utero, they would actually say, yeah, nothing to do with you.
2, 1, 0.
Hi, and welcome to the show. Today I'm with me, Dr. Laura Markham, author of the best-selling Peaceful Parents, Happy Kids series, translated into 27 languages, combines her PhD in clinical psychology with practical wisdom to help family thrive. Her relationship-based parenting approach transforms proven research into daily solutions parents can use to create lasting connection. She is a real deal. As a mom, I loved the conversation. Some of the things I knew, some were different, but just the way she approaches this whole thing was just magnificent. Today we talked about regulating your nervous system, your child's nervous system, 5 ways to maintain your child's well-being and reduce stress in their life, and also about how parenting isn't about what the child does, it's about how we as parents respond. Some part of our conversation really touched my heart so much that I teared up and I couldn't even continue the conversation for a second there. I took a deep breath and it was okay. We still had a great conversation. I'm sure it will touch your heart too. It has something to do with your own inner child. And now, without further ado, on to the show. Hi, Dr. Laura. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm looking forward to talking with you.
So before we begin, maybe you can share with me one of your favorite childhood memory.
Oh, my goodness. I would say the things that come to mind first are not favorites. But I can share a favorite. I would just say the things that come to mind first are about being a child whose parents got divorced, whose parents had a hard time growing up, and I was a lonely child, I would say. So I think it's important for parents who are listening to know, even if you had a hard childhood, that you can do the work on yourself to end up having a wonderful life and be a really great parent. So I think that's the point that I'd really like to make to parents. It's not because my childhood was not very good and my parents fought a lot before the divorce. After the divorce, my mother married a man who was pretty, as a psychologist, I would diagnose him as a narcissist, and he hit us. So I would say that I had a not very good childhood. And I would say that that is what spurred me. My mother was clueless. And my mother, she was a good human being who was struggling herself and didn't know how to handle the fact that her children were having a hard time. So I would say that that's what actually led me to do the work I do today, is that I believe every parent deserves support, because every parent comes from a childhood that probably wasn't perfect. And even if it was pretty good, there's still things to work out. So every parent, I think, wonders sometimes if they're doing a good job as a parent, and every parent wishes they had more support sometimes. And that's why I do the work I do.
Right. And did you remember anything good? Like one thing that you...
Oh, sure. I do. I have good memories. I just wanted to be really clear that I actually think this is what's important. Sure. I remember my father coming back, and that I saw him, and he was the person that I felt safe with and could talk to. And I must have been maybe 3 at the time, and running out, and he scooped me up and gave me a big hug, and he put me on his shoulders. And we were walking. There were visitors, I think, or somebody else was around. And so he was walking around. I think they might have been showing the house to sell because of my parents' divorce, and he hadn't been there. I think that's what was happening. But of course, I hadn't seen him. And so I was so happy that he'd returned. And his embrace and safety and then being on top of the world on his shoulders really made me feel like I could handle whatever happened.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I had a difficult childhood myself. That violence was involved, poverty was involved. There were a lot of things that um, were very difficult. Like if I tell you my childhood, you'll be like, "Oh wow," like that's crazy. And I really resonate with what you're saying. Regardless of what you've been through, you can be a good parent, and it takes work. It takes a lot of work. Yeah. I did 40 years of Zen. I don't know if you heard about it. It's a program from Dave Asprey where you go for a week of neurofeedback and kind of like psychological sessions, and they have a private chef and they give you tons of supplements, like brain supplements like aniracetin and lots of things like biohacking style. It's a beautiful place, and there are horses outside. It's in the countryside. It's really pretty. And I did work there, and I always thought about my childhood as super awful. But when I did some of the neurofeedback, a lot of great memories that I suppressed actually came to life. I did have some good. It was a great revelation for me to see that, our brains sometimes they're very selective, and of course that a trauma hits you harder and you remember it more than a good thing that happened, but it was good for me to see that there was some balance there. There were some really good moments, and I totally agree with you that we can always do better. And I feel like we come here to epigenetically heal the generations, right? Because when I heal myself, I heal the women that came before me and the one that will come. Because time is not linear and everything happens at once. So yeah, we heard.
I agree with, and I also agree with you that we can build on the good moments. Even if there were many hard moments, we can build on the good ones. And I would say that's true for the past, but it's also true for today. If you're a parent who had a really hard time this week with your child, sure, look at what you could do differently to give yourself more support, but also look at what did work. Look at those moments when you were able to stay calm despite their childish behavior. Look for those moments you were able to connect warmly with your child, responsively, create safety for them. If you're able to find positive moments, you can see what allowed you to create those. You can use that tomorrow.
Yes.
Because we can't go back and change the past. Well, every one of us can change tomorrow.
Right. I totally agree with you. And I want to know, can you talk about peaceful parenting? What's your definition of peaceful parenting?
So peaceful parenting is, you have to have some way to describe what you're doing, right? And the reason I like peaceful is that it's all inside.
That's true.
Parenting isn't really about the child. It's really about what's going on inside us and how we then relate to our child. So the effect of the kind of parenting that I recommend is that we are more peaceful and confident in our own hearts and in our actions. But the kind of parenting I recommend, peaceful parenting, really has three simple, big ideas. The first idea is that we have to be calm. And no one's calm all the time, right? Every one of us gets dysregulated. So it's all about that ongoing dance of, as we move through life, noticing how we're doing, being compassionate to ourselves, giving ourselves care, the care we need, and healing our own triggers so we can show up as the calm, self-regulated people that we want to be with our children, because then we're the role models. And also, then we're allowing our children to calm down too, to co-regulate. Because when an adult is dysregulated, by definition, the adult is not a safe person for that child. When an adult is dysregulated, the nervous system is dysregulated, what it means is that the nervous system of the adult is unpredictable. We're in fight, flight, freeze, something, and we're not thinking well. We're not responding to our child with the emotional generosity that they need. We're just looking out for number one at that moment. So it's not safe. So children's nervous system, they're very tuned into safety because that's how they survive. That's how the human race is still here. So children notice a dysregulated adult and they're like, okay, no one's taking care of things here. I'm not safe. I'm going to look out for number one, right? I'll clobber my brother if I need to get to safety, but I'm looking out for number one. That's the child's normal response. Whereas if we can show up, we calm ourselves down, then we're able to connect with the child, and the child's like, okay, my parent has got this. I can trust you that my parents got this. They're going to take care of things. I may not like the limit they're setting. I won't get everything I want, but I get a parent who is going to keep things safe, who's not unpredictable, who's predictable, right? So who's calm and therefore being emotionally generous to me. And so that's number one, self-regulation. That's the first big idea. The second big idea, you heard me lead right into it, is connection. Because the calm parent then can reconnect with the child, even if he just clobbered his brother. The calm parent, first of all, can take care of the brother and make sure the brother's okay, and then can go back and in a calm way can reconnect with that child who did the clobbering and acknowledge. And now we're leading into the third big idea, which is coaching. But I'll tell you what they acknowledge in a moment. I want to stay with the connection because I say connection is 80 or 90% of parenting, because children can't receive our guidance. They can't be influenced by us unless they feel connected. They can't co-regulate with us, right? Unless that connection is there and they trust us. Children's willingness to cooperate with us, to listen, which means obey, right? To do what we say, all of that comes from connection. So that's the second big idea. It's self-regulation, connection. And the final idea is coaching. And that's where when the mom comes back and talks to the brother who did the clobbering of his little brother, the mom isn't going in with blame. She's not going in with shame. She's not punishing, because what would happen? What would be the child's takeaway if she comes in punishing and shaming and blaming? The child feels, first of all, it was my brother's fault. He deserved to be clobbered because he did X, Y, Z. You know, the child never thinks it's their fault. Every human being, when they clobber somebody, it's that person's fault. Of course, I didn't want to do such a thing, but I had to, right? So the child is not thinking that somehow they were wrong and should do better. They're thinking, my brother caused this. But on some deeper level, they're like, I know I shouldn't have clobbered him. I'm a terrible person. I couldn't control myself. And there's no one helping me control myself. My mother's just making me feel worse about myself, right? So when we respond to our child punitively, they respond to themselves punitively for the rest of their lives. They don't develop the emotional skills for self-regulation. They develop less empathy because they're not getting empathy from us. So all in all, they're getting shortchanged on the emotional development they need. But if we can show up coaching them to be their best selves, right? They're the one on the field. We're the coach, right? We're not doing it for them, but we are supporting them, helping them through their big emotions. You were pretty mad at your brother. You were so angry at your brother that he knocked down your tower, right? And you didn't know what else to do. You were so mad and you hit him, right? Hitting's never okay. It hurts. But you were pretty upset. I hear you. What could we do next time this happens? What could you do so you don't have to clobber your brother? Because I know you love your brother and don't really want to hit him. What could you do? I could call you? Yeah. Yes, you could call me. One of your parents is always there, or the caregiver is always there. We would always be there to help. Also, another thing you could do when your brother starts to get near your tower, what could you say? Don't come near my tower. This is mine. Please don't touch. And then, help! I need help here. My little brother's going to wreck my tower. So the parent is coaching the child. So they're developing the prefrontal cortex. They're thinking ahead about what they're going to do next time so that they don't end up having to clobber their brother, right? They're learning the skills, but they're also developing the brain. And because we aren't shaming and blaming the child, they don't feel bad about themselves. They feel like, okay, well, anyone in my position might have felt like I felt, but I don't have to act on those feelings. I don't have to act on it. I don't have to clobber him. There are other options, right? So the three big ideas of peaceful parenting are really simple. but they're hard to actually do. As you hear me talking, like, how do you calm yourself down? How do you connect with your child? How do you offer them the coaching, the emotion coaching in that moment, right? Setting up the conditions where your child can thrive and grow. That's the work.
Especially because, I am a coach myself. I'm a hypnotherapist, and I learned a lot about regulation. I know a lot. I learned a lot. I studied from the best. So when I make mistake, I feel so much shame and blame, and I put myself into this high standard where, it's just like it kills me from the inside. It's super hard. It's like, oh, I should have known better. I know those techniques. I should have said those things in a better way. So how do I, as a mom, don't go through that, beating myself up when I'm doing mistakes?
We all have to work on ourselves so that we reparent ourselves, because otherwise we treat ourselves the way we were treated as children, like with shame.
Wow. Yes.
You're describing. We all have to reparent ourselves. And in fact, I would take this a step further. I would say that most human beings go through their entire lives trying desperately to get other people to love them, so that they won't feel so much shame about who they are, right? And yet we know you can't control another person. Trying to get someone else to love you is a losing battle. On the other hand, you can love yourself. And when we love ourselves, we feel lovable. And when we love ourselves, we're able to take love in from other people. And we get more love from other people. We act more lovably, and we're able to self-regulate better, and we actually end up being more loving and receiving more love, right? But not because we got someone else to love us, right? It's because we loved ourselves. You always have to start there. So when someone feels shame, that's the work, is to look at what that shame is. And I would say to just ask, what age was I when I first was shamed?
Oh.
You probably were 3 or 4.
No, I was in utero.
You were in utero. Yeah. There you go. So it isn't even 3 or 4 in utero. Right, exactly. So in utero, I would talk to that baby in utero, and I would say to her, you were a gift. You were a gift to anyone who was going to be your parent. Anyone would have been so lucky to have this daughter come into their arms, right? Anyone would have been so lucky. You were a gift. And whatever your parent felt at that moment and directed toward you had nothing to do with who you actually were. Nothing. It was about their woundedness. And if you ask them today, I don't know if they're even still alive, but if your mother, if you asked her today, or the people who were shaming when you were in utero, they would actually say, yeah, nothing to do with it.
It's hard for me to speak because what you said really touched my heart. So I'm going to take a deep breath. And so thank you for that. It was beautiful. Yeah, we have a lot of work to do. It seems like it's never ending, doesn't it?
I believe it is never ending. I believe that we are in this body to do the work of love. And wherever we stumble, it's because there's not love there. There's something else there that's in the way of love. And our job is to create love there. Our job, and when I say create, it's to let that light in, to let that love in through us. And so going back to that child in utero, that baby, and saying, you're a gift, that might take a daily meditation for months and months. But at the end of it, you'll feel a difference. Not at the end of it, you'll feel a difference the whole way through. And you'll notice a difference. And what you'll notice is just much more, much less shame, and much more like willingness to stand in your own love and your own power. Power is a good thing. Power is how we get things done.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this. This was, for me, I think I had a breakthrough right now. So thank you for that. So lucky. I'm so lucky. Thank you. So there is something that was on your Instagram that I read that really hit home for me. And it said, parenting isn't about what the child does, it's about how we respond. And that is so, like, it's so twisted when you look outside and you look at Instagram and moms on Instagram and movies and how parenting should be. And it seems like a lot of time parents get significance from whether or not their child excel in learning or show up in a specific way. And if he's doing everything that I'm doing and he's like the perfect robot, then I'm a great parent. But I love what you said. It's about how we respond. It's not about what they do. It's about their emotional world and our connection, right?
I absolutely, absolutely. We can't control another human being. And if you could, you wouldn't want to. That would destroy that person, your beloved child, to be controlling them, right? If you could make your child into this perfect thing, that wouldn't be a real human being. That would be a puppet. That isn't what we want. So it doesn't matter what how the child shows up in the world in that sense. What matters is how we respond. And sometimes our child will show up and be delightful, and we can respond with delight because that is what we feel. And sometimes our child will show up and clobber their brother or have a tantrum at a birthday party. We could spend months planning that birthday party for our child, and they have a tantrum during the party. And we've all seen this happen. And they were just so excited and overwrought, and they just couldn't handle it. Their little nervous system couldn't handle it, and they had this meltdown because they were disappointed about something, whatever it was. And we as the parent have a choice. I saw one dad really shame his daughter, and we could do that. Or we could say, "Oh, you were having such a hard time. It's your birthday and you were so looking forward to this, and now it's not going the way you wanted. Let's take a breath. I've got you. You're safe. I know you're disappointed. We can make it through this together." Imagine doing that with your child. What do you think your child's takeaway is going to be to do that versus the dad who I saw his daughter was on the floor crying. She was so disappointed. I don't even know what about anymore. And he was speaking down to her, and everyone else was over here sort of watching. And so she's humiliated in front of everyone. And he's saying to her, "You know better than this. Get up right now and be kind to your guests." And of course, she was like 5 years old. There was no way she was going to get up and be kind to her guests. She was so humiliated. She just wanted to hide. So imagine the takeaway of that child about her father, about their relationship, about whether he'll show up for her, about whether she's safe in the world. Can you imagine? About whether she's a good person who has the skills to pull it together in a tough moment. No, she doesn't feel resilient. She feels like no one's got her back and she's might as well give up. Versus the first one I described where the parent says, "We'll make it through this together. You're so disappointed," right? And no shame, no blame, just you're having a hard time. This is a good kid having a hard time. That's what all kids are when they're acting out. They're acting out feelings they can't express in words because they're too little to have the words. Even 14-year-olds don't always have the words. And in fact, the truth is even 44-year-olds don't always have the words, right? We didn't practice as children. But in this case, what I'm describing, if the child is acting out and the parent's like, "Oh, I won't be able to put this on Instagram. Now it's going to, it's so terrible. I'm such a bad mother." That parent is going to have to do a little work on herself too. She feels like she's a bad mother that her child's acting out. That's shame. What's she going to do with that shame? She's going to put it right on her child like that man did. That father was like, "You know better." Why? Because he felt ashamed in front of the guests for how his daughter acted. He couldn't handle that. So which is hard to handle shame, to be fair. And so what did he do with it? Instead of saying to himself, "I feel embarrassed and ashamed of myself. People are going to think I'm a terrible father and I have a terrible daughter." Instead of that, and that would be an okay thing to acknowledge, and then to say, "But you're okay. You're okay. She's okay. She's a good kid having a hard time. I'm a good dad. This is not about me. This is about supporting her and taking care of the guests." He could have done that.
What a beautiful process. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And if he had done that, he would have gone home with a little healing at the end of that day, right?
Yeah.
Right? Some healing of his own shame. Instead, because he didn't know what to do, and we're all in this position sometimes that we don't know what to do, he put it on his daughter. So this little 5-year-old, had to carry that shame from him. And that's how we visit the shame down in the generations. We don't do the work, and so it gets put on someone.
If a parent did something bad, to that extent or less, when is it a good time to apologize, and what's the right way to apologize or connect with a child after an event like that?
When we realize, often we find ourselves in the middle of these situations as parents and we don't even know how this thing is coming out of our mouth. We're in the supermarket and our kid has just knocked down a jar of something and it broke all over the floor. And we're like, don't you touch that. You know better, right? And it's all our own shame coming out at our child, shaming our child, right? And then all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh. And we look at the stricken look on our child's face and we realize, and everyone's staring, and they're judging the child and judging us, we assume. They may or may not be. We don't know what they're actually doing, but that's what we assume, that they're judging us. If we notice it happening, we can stop any place we notice it. That's point one, the event of us doing it, right? And then here's like wherever. So any point along the road, we can notice it happening. You said, when's the right time? At this moment, if we notice, we can stop. I call it stop, drop, breathe. It takes 1 minute. It's like stop what you're doing, drop your agenda, take a breath. And what that does is it interrupts the neurotransmitters. Because right now, at this moment, when the jar dropped and you went, you got triggered. You got plunged into fight, flight, or freeze, right? Your neurosystem is like, adrenaline and all the stress hormones, cortisol. At that moment, if you stop, drop your agenda, and take a breath, you don't have to prove anything. You're not engaging with any of the people looking. You're not even really engaging with your child for that moment. You're just in yourself going, because that breath sends a signal to your neurobiology, to your nervous system, that it's not an emergency. If there were a tiger chasing you or a robber, you would not be stopping to take the breath, right? So like the nervous system goes, oh, hey, we don't have to pump out more adrenaline here. No more cortisol. It's okay. It's not an emergency. She's taking a deep breath, right? It's like, okay, we have a moment to settle down here. But it's just a moment, because at this point, the child is probably crying because you just screamed at them, and also they just dropped the jar and they're upset and everyone's staring at them. And, so your child is maybe crying, or maybe they're like, I hate you. I want a new mommy, depending. At that moment, take that breath, and then you have to give yourself a little compassion. Because if you've just screamed at your child in front of everyone in the supermarket and they've just done something that makes you ashamed, dropping the jar, you're feeling down on yourself, let's just say. Every little bit of shame you have from childhood kicks in at this moment. So you have to give yourself some compassion. Remember, you haven't said anything to your child yet since you noticed this. All you did was take a split second to stop, drop, and breathe. And then you say to yourself, it's okay. It's okay. And whatever works for you, I would say, find some sticky notes, write different little mantras on it, and put them all over your house and see what works for you. The one that worked for me was, it's not an emergency. It feels like an emergency when the thing drops, but I don't think it's actually an emergency. Very little in parenting is the emergency we think it is, right? If it is an emergency, your child's running in the street or your one kid's clobbering the other, you're right in between them. You're right. You're doing whatever needs to be done physically. You're not stopping and going, oh, I wonder what mantra I'm going to use, So most of the time, parenting is not an emergency, even if our body is like, ah. So it's not an emergency works. He's a good kid having a hard time works. I can handle this works. A lot of times parents are like, oh my goodness, what do I do? And we feel helpless, victimized, especially if our kid hits us. I can handle this. It's like, okay, I can handle this. So whatever works for you, play with different mantras.
One of my favorite mantras, regardless of like parenting or not parenting, is I can do hard things. I like that one.
I love that. I love that one too. And I would add something to it. I would say, I can do hard things. I just need more support. I just need to give myself more support, because that's the truth. The truth is we sometimes need support to do hard things, but we're all in this together, right? Right. So that's a really powerful one. I can do hard things. I just need to give myself, what support do I need? So we're back in the supermarket. You said, when do you apologize? At this moment, we stopped, dropped, and breathed, just like that. And then we were like, I can do hard things. This is going to be okay. And we look at our child in the eye and we say, I am so sorry I just yelled. I am so sorry I just yelled at you. You were startled now we start to empathize. You were startled when that jar broke. I was startled too. And I was embarrassed. You know, all these people are around, but your obligation is not to these people. Your obligation is to your child. You're the only person in that supermarket whose obligation is to this child. That's your job. Your job is not these people. So you say to and by the way, somebody is already running to tell a store employee who's coming over with a mop. It's not your job to clean it up even. You can apologize to them, but it's not your job to clean it up. So your job is your child at this moment, because you just, they knocked the jar, which they didn't mean to, and broke it, and they're feeling bad, but also you just yelled at them. So you say, I'm so sorry I yelled at you. I was startled when the jar dropped. You were startled when the jar dropped too, right? You were startled. And at this point, your kid getting this understanding might just burst into tears, or they might be a little defensive. Depends on the kid and depends on how connected they feel to you, how much trust. If they burst into tears, it's because they're like, oh, Mommy's going to take care of me. I did mess up, but it's okay. She loves me. And you just hold they're in the cart, and you just hold them and you say, it's going to be fine, sweetheart. See, they're coming all ready to mop it up. And then you say to the person, you model for your child how to handle a public mess up. And you say, I'm so sorry we dropped that. We'll pay for it at the checkout, and thanks so much for cleaning it up. I'm really sorry to have left you with a mess, right? And you move your cart out of the way so they can clean it up, and that's that. And probably nobody even comes over to you and says anything. Sometimes people do that. They do come over if they think that you don't know what you're doing. Sometimes, like if your child will burst into tears and you're holding them, they'll come up and go, oh, I'm sorry. Would he like a candy? They'll do things like that. People sometimes. And you just say, oh, I think he just needs a minute. It was scary when the jar fell and then I yelled at him. That's it. And he's hearing you.
It's a double validation. I love that. It's really cool. I mean, I have moments where I'm like that perfect scenario where I apologize the right way. I speak the right way. I have all those all my ducks in a row, and I'm like, I'm doing everything amazing. And then, sometimes you're tired, you're exhausted, somebody pissed you off at work, whatever it is. And yeah, the child is right there. And especially I'm homeschooling, so I'm with him a lot. So, and we have a beautiful bond and a beautiful connection. And I think sometimes I need to take that breath and breathe and be like, it's not an emergency. Everything's okay. And I love what are you aware of Imago dialogue? Yeah, so it's all about validation, and I used to do it with my partner, and sometimes I do it with my child, where it's the empathizing, the repeating them, making them feel understood. Sometimes just that take a child from 100 to 0. Just knowing that there is somebody there that understands what they're going through.
We all need that. Children don't need everything they want. They don't need that toy. They don't need a cookie before dinner. But what they do need is to feel understood without being made wrong. We don't have to say, you have so many toys. You're greedy. You're not grateful, or whatever. Like, why would we do that to a child when we could just say, you think that toy is pretty cool. You wish you could have it. I hear you. We're not buying a toy today, sweetheart. I see why you really like it. Yeah. So just the validation of it. The kid's like, okay, I got it. No toy today. And again, sometimes parents will say, but you don't know my kid. He will go 0 to 60. He's very full of emotions, very strong-willed. If we do the preventive maintenance, I for a different car metaphor, I could say, people say, but what do you do when you're trying to get out of the house to take your kid to school and the baby just suddenly is a poopy diaper and your two other kids are fighting with each other? They come up with a bad scenario, right? And I'm like, every parent has faced that bad scenario. First of all, we understand. We all have been there. But that's when you're in the breakdown lane. That's when your car just ran out of gas, or, the motor seized up because you hadn't had a tune up or whatever, and it's in the breakdown lane. You really can't do anything except call the tow truck. All you can do at that moment is say, oh my goodness, we're having such a hard time. I guess I'm going to be late for my meeting. I'm going to text them and let them know that. And then I'm going to intervene between my two fighting children and separate them. And then I'm going to change the baby's diaper. And then we're going to give each other a big group hug, and we're going to go get in the car together. That's the only thing you can do. That's the breakdown lane, right? But what if you've done some preventive maintenance on your car? It's full of gas and it's had a tune-up. It doesn't end up in the breakdown lane. Same thing for children. If you actually have been validating your children who are now fighting because they're fighting about something, right? But if you've been validating them, if you've been empathizing with them as much as you can, if you've been helping them with any big emotions and big jealousies they have of each other, right? And I have 5 specific tools that we use in peaceful parenting that are their prevention tools, the preventive maintenance tools, and I'll tell you what they are. But if you've been doing those things, they're much less likely to have a fight at the moment you're walking out the door, right? Can't do anything about the poopy diaper, but we can stop the kids from having the big fight at that moment, right? So shall I tell you the 5 tools?
Yes, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to the 5 tools.
All right. So these are in no particular order. They're all important. The first one is roughhousing or laughter every day with every child. There's a reason for that. When we laugh with someone, we're releasing oxytocin into our system. People listening probably know that's the bonding hormone. So if you and I are laughing together, we're bonding. If I'm laughing with my sibling, I'm bonding with my sibling. I'm much less likely to then have a fight with my sibling when we're walking out the door the next morning, right? And if the parent is having a hard time with that kid, having a hard time getting the kid to listen or to obey what they're saying when it's bedtime, if they do some roughhousing, not right before bed because the kid gets all worked up, but earlier in the day, that kid is going to be laughing with the parent. That kid is going to feel much more connected to the parent and much more cooperative. It really helps kids also, especially kids who tend to be anxious. There's an anxiety epidemic among our children right now.
Yes, there is.
Yes. One of the reasons is screens. One of the reasons is not enough downtime for kids, not enough time outdoors, too much pressure academically. But another reason is that we parents are so anxious, right? So there's a lot of reasons for kids' anxiety that research is very clear on.
Right. And since I'm in Israel, we also have the war going on. So, sirens and missiles are not a simple thing for a child to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So kids are suffering from anxiety at epidemic rates right now. One way to support kids who tend to be more anxious or who have anxious feelings because they hear, sirens, one way to support them is laughter, because laughter reduces the anxiety in the system. It not only releases oxytocin in your system, it gets rid of adrenaline, it gets rid of cortisol, reduces the amount of cortisol circulating in the system. All the stress hormones get reduced. It's like a reset. Even for parents say to me, I can't roughhouse with my kid at the end of the day. I'm exhausted. I totally understand that. But here's the experiment. I used to do this with my kids. If I was exhausted, like you're traveling with your kids, when my kids were teenagers, I'm thinking, I was traveling with them. I was exhausted. We get to the end of the day in a hotel. The last thing I wanted to do was to connect with them or to anything. And everybody's grouchy. I would pick up a pillow and throw it at one of my kids. Pillow fight. We'd have a quick pillow fight, like 5 minutes of clobbering each other with the pillows and laughing. And at the end of that 5 minutes, I felt re-energized and we all felt reconnected and we were all laughing and in a good mood for whatever happened next, right? Laughter, really important as preventive maintenance to feel close to your child and to help your child work through anxiety and just let go of any feelings from the day. Second thing, one-on-one connection time with each child. If you have more than one child, they need that one-on-one connection time. Roughhousing you can do with both kids together or 3 kids or 4, whatever you got. But when you have when you have more than one child, you have to spend one-on-one time with that kid, even if it's 10 minutes a day. And that's unstructured time if possible, where you just sort of pour your love into them, because that's how they feel your love. It like puts your love into action. Third thing, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly now. Routines. Kids need routines because it shows them what to expect in their day. It reduces anxiety. It helps them feel safe. And it allows you to work into the daily routine connection opportunities. So when they wake up in the morning, you snuggle for a few minutes. When you're dropping them off at their daycare or their school, you're talking about what you're looking forward to later in the day, which of course is seeing them. I want to hear all about what happened on the field trip, or all about what happened with your friend, whether he's back at school today from being sick or whatever. The point is, you have opportunities to work in these little rituals into your day that don't take extra time, but they're part of the routine. And so routines help kids feel safe, and they help kids feel connected and cooperative. And, if this is just what we do at this time of day every day, like take a bath or brush your teeth, then there's no power struggle over it. It's like, this is just what we do at this time of day. If it's sort of random when they're going to take a bath or brush their teeth, they will fight with you about it, because kids don't usually want to do those things. Okay, so we've got three things. We have roughhousing, we have one-on-one time, we have routines. The next one is something you can do, you want to try to do 24/7. And that's empathize and validate. You and I have already talked about how important that is. You won't be perfect. You won't be able to do it 24/7 because you're not Mother Teresa. But you know what? Mother Teresa was not a mother. She didn't do it 24/7 either. And she didn't have children. So I'm just saying to notice and try to validate when you can, and just work on your ratio of good moments to bad moments. And the final one, the final preventive maintenance, is to welcome all emotions. It's okay.
I love that.
It's okay that your child is sad. It's okay that they're disappointed, that child at the birthday party. It's okay that they're angry. That kid who's angry at his brother for knocking down the tower, or the kid who knocked down the tower because he just wanted to play with his big brother. All of their feelings are fine. He's not allowed to knock down the tower. He's not allowed to clobber the brother. We'd rather she didn't have a tantrum in the middle of the supermarket. But whatever they're doing, the feelings are allowed. It's the actions that we live, right? Feelings are allowed. And what that means is if our kids having big feelings and we try to make the feelings go away, you can't be mad at your brother. No, you don't hate your brother. No, they probably don't hate their brother actually, but they're mad. They're allowed to be mad, right? So we say, hate is a big word. You're saying how mad you are at your brother. You're saying how you are so angry at him. You're allowed to be angry at him. You're not allowed to hit him, right? So if we're allowing the feelings, they allow the feelings, and they learn how to manage the feelings. But if we shut the feelings down and say, you're not allowed to feel that, you're not allowed to feel disappointed at your birthday party, you get up and be nice to your guests. If we make them shut those feelings down, feelings go away. No, they're still there in the body. We're stuffing them down into the subconscious. I call it the emotional backpack, right? It's the body. And you know what? Then they're not under conscious control, those feelings. And if they're not under conscious control, then they're going to do what they want. He's going to clobber his brother again because it's just going to burst out, right? Whereas if we can allow the feelings, that's the first step of the child learning to accept their own feelings, validate them, and not act on them. That's emotional intelligence. That's self-regulation. That's impulse control. That's delayed gratification. All the things that we know will help our children be successful in life.
How do we protect our children from stress? And do we need to protect our children from stress?
I don't think we can completely protect our children from stress. Completely, right? But I do think we need to notice when it's too much for them. So when you say, how do we protect them? The 5 preventive maintenance tools I just gave you will absolutely help a child handle the normal stresses that come at any kid. So every kid in the world has some stress. They're starting first grade. Their best friend's moving out of town. They're trying out for the school play. Whatever it is, the normal stresses of everyday life for children. We don't want to protect them from those things. We don't ever want our child to suffer, but every child is going to have some of those stresses, and they need to learn that they have the resilience to get through it. That little girl at the birthday party would have had the resilience to deal with her disappointment if her father had been in her corner, right? So the way we protect our kid from stress is we show up for them. We help them with their big emotions when they feel stress, when they feel disappointed by life or sad about their friend moving or scared about going to school on the first day or whatever it is. We help them. We do what I call emotion coaching. And we can describe what that is, but we're basically accepting and validating the emotions. That's the biggest part of it. And when we do that, we give our child the support they need to develop their own inner resources to cope with stress. And the stresses will get bigger. That kid who is 4 right now is going to be 14 and subject to bigger stresses. And they're going to be 18 and 24 and 28 and subject to bigger stresses. They're still going to be your kid and they're going to have big stresses in the world. And we can't protect them from all those stresses. What we can do is give them the emotion coaching. And, that's part of what I said when I said accept all emotions. We're giving them the preventive maintenance that they learn for themselves, how to manage themselves through a stressful situation. That's resilience.
Yes, resilience. So talking about resilience, in my experience with my child, we are in one of the activities we do. There is a child there that is a bully, pushes him, yells at him, and I would like your advice on how to deal with bullies. Do you just take them away from the situation and just when do you try to change environments? And when do you try to, use NLP or other methods to guide the child, which I've done, which didn't really help yet.
So first of all, we talked about everyday stresses, right? And we want to do the preventive maintenance. So if you're doing the 5 preventive maintenance things, your kid doesn't have a full backpack, he's going to have more inner resources. But you still want to support him around this particular stress, this bully.
This one is extreme stress. This kid is very unregulated.
Okay. How old is this kid? The bully?
Is 4 and my son is 5.
Okay. So 4 and 5-year-olds. Okay. So the first thing you do is sometime when you're not going to the activity, let's say the activity's on Tuesday, Sunday morning, you're with your child and you say, let's do a puppet show. And you grab a stuffed animal and another stuffed animal and you say, they're at this activity, whatever the activity is that the bully shows up at. You say, and here's the little elephant and here's the bear and the bear pushes the elephant. And you say to your kid who's watching you do this little puppet show, you say to your kid, did you see that? The bear pushed the elephant. Oh, what should we say to the elephant? And your child might have an idea like, push him back, or you're okay, elephant, or don't let him push you, or don't touch my body. Your child will have some ideas. That's great. And you say, great. You're okay, elephant. You don't have to let him push you. Say, don't touch my body. And the elephant says, don't touch my body. And then you can play with different scenarios. The bear who did the pushing can say, I'm sorry. I'm in a bad mood today. And the elephant can say, I'm sorry you're in a bad mood. You want a hug? And give him a hug. Very unlikely that scenario is going to happen for your son and the bully at the activity, right? Very unlikely. But what we've just seen is that, in fact, this bear who does the pushing is not an evil person. He's a 4-year-old who's in a bad mood, probably every day, because he probably gets pushed plenty at home. So we have just communicated to your child, this is not a bad kid. This is not an enemy even. This is a child who's having a hard time, and we can hug it. Now, then you say to your child, do you think that would work with such and such, the bully? And your kid's like, no, I don't. You can say, yeah, I wonder what we could do. And then you want to, remember I talked about how laughter gets rid of the anxiety? Your child, if they've been bullied and pushed around by this other kid, probably feels some anxiety. You could get your kid laughing about this. You could say, I know, let's have a big hole in the floor open up. I'm going to do, the little elephant's going to pull a big lever and the hole in the floor is going to open up and the bear is going to drop through. Whoop, goodbye, bear. Do you think that would work? Do you think we can get a hole in the floor at the place, at the activity? Your kid's going to go, no, mommy, but probably will be laughing at you. Like, Ema, but probably will be laughing at you. Probably, I'm assuming. And so at this point, that's great. If you can get your child laughing, they start to reduce some of the anxiety about the situation. So this is one tool in advance that you can use to support your child to think about what happens when you get there. But that's on like the weekend, days before. So on Tuesday, you say, we're going to go to this activity today. And your kid's like, oh, I don't want to go that bully. And you say, that does not feel good to get pushed. What could we do to make things better? What could we do to prevent this bully from pushing you? What could, and your child might say, I can tell him, hands off my body. You say, yeah, give me 5. Great. What else could you do? Think they have a lever to pull? No, probably not. You're laughing. He's laughing. And you say, what else could you do? Well, I could stay near the teacher, if there's a teacher or coordinator for the activity, and you can say, and if that kid, that bully, continues to come after you and push you, I could talk to the teacher or I could talk to the parent of that child, because it is our job as parents to step in at some point. If our kid is getting brutalized by somebody and you said it's a big trauma, like obviously we're not going to let our kid get pushed around like that. But we're trying to coach the child. We're not saying, oh, this is a terrible, terrible situation. We're saying, this is life. It's not a good thing that it's happening to you. This kid's obviously having a hard time, this brown bear who's pushing everybody. But on the other hand, we can handle this. And I'm right here as your backup. And then when you go to the activity, you've already talked to your kid about it. You're staying near them. You're watching. And the brown bear kid, whatever this kid is, the bully, comes up and pushes your kid down. I would immediately get up, go over. If the kid's parents are there, you say to the parents, could you help here, please? If their parents are not there and it's the teacher or coordinator or somebody's there, you say, could you help here, please? You ignore the kid for a minute. You pick up your kid, you give him a hug and you say, that was hard. That was hard. What do you need to say to the other kid? Don't you touch me like that. Hands off my body. Your kid says, and you say, yes, good for you. You can say it hurts when you push me, and your kid can say that. So they're starting to get validated, your own son. And meanwhile, hopefully somebody else has come over to the other kid. And then you turn around to the other kid. You're down on the ground. You're on the level of your kid with your arm around your kid. Your kid's here in the crook of your arm. And you say to the bully, did you hear what my kid said to you? And you use your child's name. Did you hear what he said to you? He said it hurts his body when you push him. I think you're probably having a hard day. It's not okay to push the other kids. You do this right in front of his parents. You do it right in front of the coordinator. And he probably, because you're an adult and he's 4, will just look shamefaced to the ground, and you can say, this started off hard, but we could have a good day here today, couldn't we? Nobody has to push anybody, right? What should we do now to have a good time together? You say to the teacher or coordinator, and then you just move on. But you do it again if you need to. If the other parent says to you, don't you reprimand my child, which can happen, usually they don't. Usually it's worse than that. Usually they ignore you. They turn to their child and they say you're sorry. And they put a lot of shame on their kid. You're not looking for a sorry. You don't care about that. You're helping your child feel validated, right? If the kid says he's sorry, you can say, thanks for apologizing. What so-and-so and I need is no more pushing. Thanks. Let's have a good time here together today. And then you look at the other parent, you say, thanks. All good. If the parent says to you, don't you reprimand my child, which parents will say, you can say, I'm sorry. This is not the first time that your child has pushed my child. And my child has started to be worried about coming to this activity. So I do need someone to speak with your child, and I didn't see anybody else doing it. But I don't think he took it badly. I think he took it as my child saying, please don't touch me. What do you think? Would this work for you?
That's amazing.
Yeah? Good.
Yeah, that can work. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Wow.
Takeaways, if you look at the takeaways for that, the takeaway for your child is somebody's got my back, but also I can stick up for myself. That's what we're worried about, right? Is that he'll be beaten down by this bully and be
Yes.
injured and traumatized. But if he comes away with those feelings, then it's a growth experience.
Amazing. Well, wow. Thank you so much. This was phenomenal. I could talk to you for another 5 hours, probably, or more. Uh, but I want to be respectful of your time. Before we say goodbye for now, I have two questions. First is, what are your 3 top tips to living a stellar life? And the second one is, where can people find you, buy your books, and get coaching from you, all that good stuff.
My top 3 tips for living a stellar life. Now, since I haven't had time to think about it in advance, I reserve the right to change these by tonight. But the one I would start with always is what we talked about at the beginning of our conversation. We're all here to heal ourselves, and that heals the planet by bringing more love into the world. And so if that's what you're aspiring to, you can always find places to grow, and you can encourage yourself to do that. I'd say that's really, we don't really need any more tips than that. That would do it. If we all did that, that would do it. But I'm going to add a second one anyway. Gratitude. Because a lot of times people say, well, I'd like to do that, but I don't know how to feel that sense of well-being, that sense of lovingness. The way to feel that sense of well-being, research shows, is gratitude. When we feel gratitude, it moves us closer to a state of love than anything else, right? So just a gratitude practice where you go through your day looking for things to be grateful for. I think you'd probably be enlightened by the end of the week if you could do that 24/7. And my third tip would be, again, about how to find that emotional well-being. And that's that there's a lot of research on this too. It's research on meditators. And what we have found is you don't have to meditate. I mean, if you want to meditate an hour a day for the next 40 years, you mentioned the 40 years of Zen title of the program you went to. I'm a meditator. I'm delighted if you, and no parent that I know, including me when I had little kids, none of us has an hour a day to meditate. But what we found about meditation is that there are many findings about how it rewires your brain and makes you happier and calmer. But there's one particular tool that even people who are super busy can use to rewire their brain. And that is to project love out to other people. So I'm in New York City. I get on the subway and I just sit there and I look at every person on my subway car and I send them love. Now, do they know I'm doing it? Probably not. Do they see me smiling at them? Sometimes. I don't have as my daughter says, you can't get on the subway and have an invitational smile to everybody. You'll end up in trouble. And I don't have what I would call an invitational smile. I just have a sense of well-being, and I'm projecting that well-being to each person, one by one. And with what research shows is it takes about 5 minutes of this. Maybe the research was 10 minutes, but for me it takes about 3 because I've practiced it for so long. Sending love to other people, you're actually feeling love. You're in a state of love. And when we're in a state of love, we're in a state of well-being. So those last 2 tips, gratitude 24/7 and sending love to other people at least every day, that the research shows the sending love part works as a way to increase your sense of well-being. So those 2 things will shift you into a state of well-being and emotional generosity so that you can do that first thing we talked about, my first tip, which is do the hard work on yourself to be able to show up with love. And you'll be not only healing you and having a better life, a much happier life, but you'll also be making the world a better place. And where people can find me.
Yes.
I have 3 books out, the Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids series. This one's being re-released, the new improved copy, and it's going to have a new cover, I'm happy to say. I think they're going to give this one a new cover too. And this one. And so this is the sibling book. If you have more than one child, this is the basic ideas we've talked about today. And this is, if you like workbooks, this takes you through all of the lessons in this book and helps you work on your own triggers, your own stuff. That's the whole first half of the book. The second half of the book is how do you connect with your child and how do you set limits that your child wants to cooperate with you without yelling and threats. So those are the 3 books. But to find me online, peacefulparenthappykids.com. peacefulparenthappykids.com. It's a 1,000 page website. So it's free. It's a public service. And it addresses everything you could possibly ask. There's a search box. Anything you could ask from in utero to the teen years. Oh, and
Incredible.
on any page of the website at the bottom of the page, you can sign up for my newsletter. Again, it's free. It's completely free, and it gives you all the tips that we talked about today. Imagine getting something in your inbox every week that reminds you how to do these things, how to stay calm, how to connect with your child, how to coach your child when they're having big emotions. That's what the newsletter's about.
That's beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Laura. I really appreciate your time and you sharing that beautiful wisdom with us and that beautiful moment you gave me at the beginning of the show. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for spreading the love and the light in the world.
Thank you for the work you're doing. It was a pleasure to talk with you today. It's my honor to talk to parents.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners. Remember to heal and love yourself. Use gratitude to get in a state of love. Project love onto the world and to other people and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time.